Welcome to the NX session. My name is Bob Hobrock. I'm responsible for NX, both as a product and as a platform for Siemens PLM. And welcome here to our connections. Helping me today will be Paul Brown, who just ran down there, and Paul Bevan, better known as PB squared, which you've seen them forever. Okay, what to expect for the next 3 days? We have a lot of sessions, and we've really worked hard this year to try to make the presentations more interactive and more informative for you. So please feel free to attend any of the sessions. Also, we've added something to the agenda just recently to allow all of you, about half of you, I already have meetings scheduled this week from 7 in the morning until 10 at night all week. But for any of you that I don't, that want to talk to me or my management team, we have open hours set up every day this week in the NX track area. So feel free to come over there and discuss with us anything you'd like to learn about or anything you'd like added to the product. NX, from a business perspective, is expanding nicely. We're expanding in all countries of the world. We're expanding faster than our major competitors. And I think it's 6 years in a row, right, George? 6 years in a row now that we've outbeaten our competitors, so we're taking business away from our two major competitors there. One thing I'd like to mention here that is another reason why we did this open hours session is we talk a lot about our very big customers because they're big and they're well known and the names are well known amongst all of you. But 60% of our business comes from small companies around the world. Small and medium-sized companies. Companies with a business under $1 billion. And you know, with seats anywhere from 1 to 20. So I want to make sure that we have interaction with you also at this event. So that's one of the reasons why we did this open hour session, because you're just as important, you're actually more important than our biggest customers in many ways from total overall revenue. I'll be presenting some of our strategic initiatives, and we have one big main strategic initiative that we're announcing at this conference for the first time. And that is, how do we deliver innovation faster to you? We hear from you that we don't fix bugs fast enough. We don't get the functionality that we talk about at these conferences to you fast enough. And as end users, you just don't see it. Even if we totally release a new product, on average, it takes our customers 3 years to actually see that product. That's too long. There's no app you're using that your kids are using anyway, where it takes 3 years. They release functionality, they get it that month. You release functionality on Windows today, you get it that month. So we're going to a whole new deployment strategy for NX that will allow you to, if you wish, it'll be optional, to deploy NX continuously. So this is our big strategic change that we're doing, and we've been preparing for it for years. One of the major milestones that made this possible was we now have over 1 million automatic tests. So everything we fix, we can make sure is still fixed. Everything we develop, we spend more money on testing and creating tests than we do on the actual development of that new functionality. And why is that important? Because every single release will now be deployed somewhere for some of you. And every single release has to have super high quality with no regressions. So let's talk about this for a little bit. How many of you are on our current release? Our current release is 12.01. How many of you are on 12.01? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 out of maybe 100. And that's typical. Actually, that's better than I expected. Under this new deployment strategy, those of you that take it will obviously be on not just 12.01, but the latest patch on top of 12.01. And you'll be on those deployments automatically. Our software development is getting more agile. It's going to include everything. That's a question. There are no more MP patches, as we'll discuss. The software just rolls out, just like all other software you're using today. It's backward compatible within a certain time frame. But I'll take questions in a little bit. And there's a whole session on this in more detail. This was just sort of the teaser to get you excited about it, learning about it, and understanding how we're actually going to deploy it, and confident we are deploying it. So, you know, what does Agile mean to you? It's a software methodology, and those of you that develop software know that. But what it more importantly means is that you get functionality faster when it's ready, and you don't have to wait. One of the problems we've had internally is when we have releases every 15 months, if a project is close but not quite ready, it either goes in or it has to wait another 15 months to go in. And then on average, it takes 3 years before that enhancement is deployed. There's nothing agile about any of that. In the future, every enhancement cannot be released until it's ready, until it's fully certified, until it's actually tested by customers before it's broadly deployed, and then it can go out at that moment, waiting for nothing. Instead of having update training that a lot of you do every 15 months or every year, the software tells you about its new functionality that's coming out. I was with a CIO of one of our automotive customers in India recently, Maruti Suzuki, and they have a very young workforce, yet his worry actually should have been more of your guys' worries, because generally in the US we have an older workforce than they had there. And he said, it's not, my worry isn't that you don't have the right functionality, my worry is that we're not leveraging your new functionality. The people that joined us 10 years ago are still doing what they learned 10 years ago. And he's right. So the software should tell you, here I'm doing it this way. Should you look at this? Did you know about this new functionality? You shouldn't have to wait for training. The software should tell you when and how you could potentially do things better. And we're delivering that. So that's all part of Agile from a customer perspective. Don't think of Agile as a software development methodology, although it is that too. What just happened? don't think I pressed anything. Okay, so every release of NX will be ready to be deployed. Never think of a 0.0 release. Anything that was at 0.0 quality and not ready to be deployed by 100% of our customer base will never be released. It might be tested by certain customers. It might be released to selective customers on an early test basis, but it will not be released as part of the continuous upgrade. Okay? NX is not just NX as a CAD system. NX is a platform. All of our graphics applications, many of which, whether you see it in Team Center, whether you see it in manufacturing solutions, whether you see it in our CAE tools, are all based on NX as a platform. So this platform methodology will go out everywhere, across all of our tools. Certain principles of NX, which are our openness and our understanding of your data and keeping your data forever, will continue. Every AE in our system still releases, still opens up parts from 20, 30 years ago and shows you how that works well in our system today. Okay, so traditionally, what happens? Traditionally, users deploy a release. They may or may not update some hotfixes, deploy some maintenance packs, and then they wait 2 or 3 years before they upgrade the next release, generally waiting for a Team Center upgrade or a NX deployment testing, customization testing, and they stop. And the new strategy is just like Windows. It updates constantly. NX is smaller than Windows, by the way. NX is smaller than Office, by the way. So to say that it's just too big that it can't do it, it's just wrong. Hopefully not on a Friday night when you're trying to shut your computer down. That happens on Windows with me all the time. But every release is deployable, and functionality fixes will be available to any user that's on this path anytime they want to. And again, this is optional. So just like Windows, your IT department can stop it. Your IT department can control it. You could potentially do exactly what you do today. But if you want to leverage this change and leverage these enhancements, you can go to this new deployment strategy of our software. And this is NX as a platform, not as NX as a product. Okay? So those of you who's on NX 10 or earlier, half the audience. Do you know when we worked on NX 10 as a development team? I actually don't. What would be your guess, guys? When were we working on NX 10? 4 years ago? 5 years ago? 5, 6 years ago? We released the software half this room is using. When do you think you're working on any Amazon software today they released? You're using the software they worked on last month. Windows 10, you're using the software they worked on last month. Not 5 to 6 years ago, right? So you're missing the work that we've been doing in that time frame. Because of the NX growth, the NX staffing has increased tremendously. So our functionality is improving. We've hired over 100 young people in the United States in the last year working in product development. We hired another 100 in India and China and the UK and other places. So our staffing numbers are increasing. Our functionality is increasing, as you're going to see here really quickly. But if you're on software we worked on 10 years ago or 5 years ago, how is that good? How is that right? So what's given us some confidence we can do this? And I want to get some smaller company names here, even though you wouldn't recognize them, just to make sure you know that this is really for across the industry board. But Daimler deployed NX11 within 4 months of its initial release. Daimler's our largest single customer in the world. It has most active seats of any customer in the world. And they're a little bit of complicated customer, for those of you from Daimler here. They deploy a new release of NX every 6 months. GM deployed NX11 at half the cost of its previous deployment. The GM CIO, in a meeting with us after this deployment, actually had a really funny line that I'll never forget. He said, you know, one of my main jobs is to always holler at our suppliers and complain to them and push them to do better. But you exceeded my expectations here, so I just want to say thank you. It doesn't happen a lot. Any of you that are not using NX as a product, and you're using NX as a platform and one of our competitors, tell me whether you've deployed that latest release of their software at half the cost. Have you achieved that? I doubt it. And a sort of neat small company that just deployed NX12 with Aston Martin. I'm a big James Bond fan, so I always like them. Okay, so when are we starting this? We're starting this in January 2019. It's called NX Continuous Release. Again, I want to make sure you all realize it is optional. You can turn it on or turn it off. But if you turn it on, you'll get functionality, you'll get bug fixes that are certified, that are verified, and they're up to date whenever you need it. So instead of the traditional model, you'll get a continuous step forward. And as long as you get finally to the version of Teamcenter 11.4, there'll be no upgrade of Teamcenter necessary. We will broaden our compatibility with Teamcenter to the absolute maximum that they'll allow us to support. So all versions of Teamcenter will be supported with all upgrades of NX, as long as it's in the support window of Teamcenter. Okay? And what we hope this achieves for you is higher quality software, all releases production deployable. Even if there is a problem, we can go backwards. Continuous release means we can continuously pull stuff out if needed. And it's just a much more modern, flexible way to deploy our software packages on a go-forward basis. And our commitment to you is that we will deliver the highest quality products. I just had an all-hands meeting with our development team in Milford, and many of the people that are here did that again. I don't know why it's doing that. Will tell you the number one thing that I drill into all of our developers' heads is it has to be right the first time. If you have any doubt, it can't go out, and you can't just rely on our million automatic tests. You have to really think about the code. You have to really think about the interconnectivity. So that's our commitment to you, that we'll deliver that, and that you'll have an option to go to NX in a continuous basis so you can get the latest functionality as soon as it's available anywhere. Now, what have we done recently for you in the last year since the last conference? Paul.
Okay,
and
thanks,
Paul
Bob.
will tell you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's still morning. So what we're going to do, let's take you through a few things about what the things that you're obviously missing out on because of the show of hands, but also we'll give you a chance to look at some of the values of the things that we've been working on. So I'm joined by Paul Bevan. Many of you would have seen us, if you've been in the past, you've seen us present before. Also sat down in the corner, being very quiet at the moment, is Sam Kwan. He's going to do something towards the end of the presentation. But one of the things, let's go back a little bit to when Tony presented first thing this morning about the topic of digitalization. And the fact is, digitalization is changing everything in every one of our businesses. Products are becoming more complex, and to meet it, the strategies of digitalization is changing everything. It's changing verification and testing. It's changing production. It's changing the way you assemble products, the whole process. So my question to you, I mean, it was kind of a bit scary with the show of hands, was have you actually started to move your approaches to using the software to meet this next generation that you're going to need? Now, if you are still using NX, whichever version you are, even if it's NX10, as if it was NX6, the answer to that question is no. Because we constantly keep giving you new ways of technology, new approaches. So let's go through those. The goal really is to meet this platform, and Bob mentioned NX as the underpinning platform for graphics and product development. The actual development of the digital twin, building that digital twin model, getting the information into it. And we believe that there are 6 key elements that we deliver to you. We deliver you the most productive modeling environment. And we don't just mean one function versus one function. We're talking about the workflows you work on. We are constantly looking at the workflows that you go through. Multidisciplinary, being able to connect mechanical, electrical. The new technologies, emerging technologies like generative, and integrating the validation processes, topology optimization, those types of tools. Going into additive, going into keeping this all collaborative, using our ties with Teamcenter. And you'll see a bit later some work we're doing around immersive. So our commitment on one important point that I really want to, you know, one thing we hope that you don't go away from these conferences with is the idea that all we're thinking about is different new things, but we are committed and we remain committed to delivering you the core modeling technologies that are the cornerstone of your day-to-day work. And we remain committed to trying to make those the best we can and most productive. In fact, in NX12, we had over 45 patents granted in what built into NX12. Some people ask us sometimes, how many ERs do you close? Well, in the NX12 development cycle, there was over 2,300 customer ERs. So for those of you, when you submit ERs, think that nothing happens with them, it does. We actually go through and we track them. And increasingly, we're doing more tracking of the ERs to make sure that you understand when we've done those. Well, let's get on to a bit more technology, because it's more fun. Then we get onto some demos too. Assemblies. And you would have heard in Tony Hemmelgarn's presentation, one message. Hopefully you'll take this away. Everyone that uses NX, I'm assuming, I'm almost scared to do a show of hands. How many of you deal with assemblies that are, 10,000 components and above? Okay. Bigger than that? 20,000? Right? Okay, so between 5 and 10? Yeah, so it's a real fair mix. So one of the things we've been focused on, we hear quite often, is assembly performance. How quickly can I get into the context I want to work with? Well, we can tell you now that NX12 is the fastest ever release we've ever had at loading assemblies. Now, that's a bold statement, but we're going to, let's show you what's going on. Right, so let's just bring that. Okay, so we're now over to Paul. Now, one of the things that was interesting is Tony showed you this truck. It comes from it's an Eastern European truck, actually. And in the background, we're going to load this in an older version of NX. And we've started the load going. Same machine, we're going to now start the same load. We're going to switch on the option of using the new minimal load functionality. And Paul's pressed load, right? So the other one, So we got 2 running. We gave the old one a head start. Remember that one? We gave it as a head start. Just to be fair, we got to try and level the playing field. Already you can see the navigator's up. You notice the navigator in the back session hasn't even appeared. You can start expanding it. The graphics are going to start kicking in. And then what you'll start seeing, I'm looking at Paul asking, where am I? There we go. So you'll start seeing, but this is not just display. We can interact with the display. We can start doing things. Paul can start selecting out, saying he's not interested in those parts. Let's just hide those. We're still doing the load. This load is still streaming down, but he's now being able to pick information out. He can navigate up and around in the assembly navigator. Notice the back session, the old session, still doesn't have an assembly navigator, so we've still got some work to do there. It's just going to hide the engine just to bring this forward. We're going on, we carry on. You can pause. You can pause the load at any time. You might say, I've seen enough. I've got everything I need. I can pause it and then stop the load at that point and carry on working. Or you can pause it and then go off and do some hide. Paul's just picking these wheels. He's going to hide them, and then he's going to let it go running. The reason you might want to pause things at times is because, of course, we're constantly streaming information down. So you might be trying to pick something, and then all of a sudden something pops up where you thought you'd just removed it. But anyway, so we're going off and doing this. So one of the things Paul can do once this is loaded, this is important, right? People are going, well, is it just graphical representation? What can I do with it? Am I just getting this down as a streamed display? Well, one of the things Paul can do at this point, let's have a look at this. Oh. He's just reminding me. One way you could possibly do this is just throw up the outside of things. What you can see, hopefully, as he sections through this, is all the interior detail. We didn't just do a shell around the outside of the assembly and just threw that on the screen. This has got all of the components. There are 860 components there. I've come into his session on screen. And now what he's going off and he's doing some measurements. So he maybe wants to measure the wheelbase. He's using the new measurement functionality that Taylor Anderson would have shown you if you went to his session that was at the 10 o'clock session, 10:15 session. So we've done a whole bunch of work with NX12 around measurement, made it much easier to use. We've consolidated our measurement functions. One of the things Paul's now going to do is do a little bit of work. Can he actually do some modeling work in this? Well, we're going to go through, we're going to make that the work part as usual, and then just go off and we'll just move this up. Make a quick change. Now at this point, Paul could say save, in which case then we don't have a demo for tomorrow, which would be a mistake. So he's not going to do that, but he can now actually exit this. So let me just recap. We've loaded all the components, we blanked some out, we've actually done some measurements, we've done a modification, and the old system still hasn't loaded. So we've done our work, and we're out. So that's why we're telling you NX12 is the fastest ever at loading assemblies. Yes, that was live. Sorry, that was a live demo. So. When am I going to get coffee now? Precisely. Now, we've done other things in productivity just to make sure I don't want you to just think that's all we focused on. So a couple of things. Oh, sorry, Paul, can you put the slides back up, mate? Yeah. Well, a couple of things we've done. One of the functions we added in NX12 was box selection. So it allows you to very quickly navigate down. You would have seen. I'm now running out of trying to remember when we brought in things like multiple display parts, but we brought in the multiple display parts into here. This is just, we're actually showing this was once again in 12. You can see what Paul's doing is dragging out and reorganizing the windows. For those of you who think multiple display parts, bleh, who cares? How many of you use multiple monitors? Right, so when you use multiple display parts, one of the big parts of that project was to make it work really cool with multiple monitors. You have the perfect solution now. I mean, it's allowing you to control that. Well, that's still working, so I don't bother about that. On my monitor down here, it's just told me the one-way control IR blaster has stopped. Tells me something, I guess. So one of the things you saw in there was Paul was dragging and dropping geometry between windows. He's now using a function for those of you who do sheet metal. In NX12, we added a thing called Multiband Bracket. It does what it says on the tin, right? The idea is to make it very easy to create black brackets and support structures with single command. So what Paul did, in this case, when he created this movie for me, was picked up some faces. He's just done a few little bits of sketching, and in a minute what you'll see is the 3D model will get generated, and he's done very little work. He's not gone in sheet metal, flange, another flange, bend, flange. Single command, allowing you to do lots of wrapping around, and you see the shape all wrapped up, and of course we can unfold that. We continue to invest in things like model-based definition. Our work around product PMI and building in 3D annotation. Dave Wingrave has a number of sessions on that topic. This time with some round tables to go and continue on to working on that. Key initiatives. Now, another thing we've done, it came out with NX12. A lot of times when, my background originally, before I got involved in this, I worked for a machinery company. I trained as a machinery designer. Our machinery moved. It didn't roll around, well, not unless we got it wrong. It was actually bolted to the floor, but the internals moved. And one of the things that we find with a lot of you is you say, okay, well, we want to do, have moving parts, but we don't want to have to go through a full-blown mechanism analysis. I'm not bothered about it. I just want some simple motion. I've got my assembly structure. But so now we have a solution called Animation Designer. Animation Designer doesn't worry about your assembly structure. You can build up complex movement. You can do some simple movements around joints and drives. And now what you can do is you can see there. Beauty of this is as well, it's time-based. So one of the things you'll see in the movie in a couple of seconds is we get like a Gantt chart. And on the Gantt chart, we can start sequencing. We can readjust the movement. We can adjust the speed everything moves in. The idea is to prove out your design without having to go off and do a whole bunch of work, defining joints and going into full motion analysis. It allows you to feed NX motion, so you can take this to the next level if you want to do advanced kinematics and then go into structural analysis. You can do this. This can be your first pass motion. But now you can see this thing comes down, it goes back up again, all just working together. So it builds on top, it doesn't take any notice, it doesn't care. Your assembly structure is not a restriction. You can build the rigid joints. We will take into account your linkages from your constraints, but also we can build the animation. Dave Walker, I think, has a session on Animation Designer tomorrow. So if you want to go and see a lot more about Animation Designer, he will cover that. All right, multidisciplinary. So multidisciplinary design. Talking about integrating the other processes, not just mechanical design, but bringing in more processes. So once again, in NX12, we introduced a solution for those of you, anyone that does energy type equipment, plant, marine. Quite often when you're doing piping, particularly big pipes, you start life with a process and instrumentation diagram. This is the logic, the sensible, the structure of that part of that 3D pipe. So what we've done is we've built inside the NX framework a solution for process and instrumentation diagrams, closely coupled with the routing, such that you can cross-probe, you can do lots of validation that your runs are correct. So that takes it into that type of world. But of course, that's more process or industry orientated. But we continue as well to look at electronics. So being able to tie together MCAD, NX with other tools to complement solutions like PCB Exchange, which allows you to communicate and pass PCB boards and layouts backwards and forwards. We've introduced a new product called Elma. Now, Elma allows, it's an interesting name, but you can ask Mike about that one, but allows you to, it sits outside of NX, and it connects between PCB system, schematic system, and NX, allows cross-probing, validation. It allows you to check out your entire workflows. Once again, I think Dave Walker's got a session on this afternoon. You can go and see a lot more about the electronic integration. Last year, we introduced the first step of our electrical integration with the Mentor tools, the capital harness tools. We've continued to invest in that. We're continuing to bring those two products closely together, giving you solutions which try capital harness with its logical layouts and its schematic into the 3D route inside of NX for your wire harness. Very close coupling such that you can cross-probe between each other. You can track information, track where signals go. Right. Moving on. In that same area, we have a solution. One of the things that many of you, if you're into anything to do with fluid, or if your products have like cooling properties, quite often you need to worry about airflow or fluid flow. Now, that's traditionally been the domain of analysts in CFD packages. And yes, we have products like Star CCM Plus, which are very high-level CFD solutions. However, there is the need for a designer-level tool. So we're pleased to announce that as part of the partnership with Mentor, we are offering a product called FlowEFD for NX. FlowEFD is a wizard-type approach. It's embedded inside of NX, inside the design environment. You don't have to care about meshing. You don't have to care about all those complex stuff. It does all that. And what it allows you to do is define. In this case, we defined pressure at this end, out to atmospheric pressure. You can see all the flow curves. You can see where there's dwell points, where the liquid is going to slow down. So there's lots of capabilities to allow you to validate at the first pass. So it's an early validation of fluid properties using a really simple interface that allows you to do this within the design environment. Okay, it's not designed as a high-end analyst tool. It's there for you as a designer. Okay, trying to work out if everyone's shell-shocked yet and how much more I can bombard you with. Okay, right, so let's carry on. So generative design. So generative design and integrated validation. The ability to allow the system to help suggest potential designs and go through and give you some options of working with that. And we've really been focused on a workflow. As Tony Hemmelgarn mentioned this morning, just having point solutions, just having individual tools, that's not really where it's at. To be able to be productive, it's the process that we have to connect together. So from the idea of having your requirements, going through and doing your optimized design, going through and making modifications and update it right the way through to final manufacture in one system without data translation. You know, when Tony told the Bugatti story, we're going to talk a lot more about the Bugatti story tomorrow morning in the Jim Rusk session. When Tony told that story, one of the key things that they wanted to do was keep in the same system and not translate data. And I'm going to say this one time, and I'll say this repeatedly. Even if you get a system that's a niche system and they say, we have a free NX translator, free is not free. There is nothing in life when you translate data that is free. Okay, there's always work to validate. Keeping in the same system with all the connections is. So we're going to a demonstration. So what we're going to do, now we're not going to take you through topology optimization. We're going to talk to you a little bit about what we've done with what you can do with the results of topology optimization. So topology optimization brings out a facet body. Now, for those of you who've been around for a while, came last year and keeps an eye on our messages, one of the key elements you'll see is we introduced convergent modeling. Convergent modeling allows you to combine facet geometry and B-rep geometry and work with it. But we've done a lot of extra work on how you can handle facet geometry, how you can handle all these millions of triangles. So one of the things you'll see is Paul's just going through. We've got this very thin area in this topology optimization, and Paul's just offsetting it. So he's offsetting it and then bridging it into the shape. We've not gone off and done any conversion. This is still working with facets. All right, so he's not actually gone and changed the geometry. This is speeding up the whole process of taking your geometry, whether it's scanned or topology optimized, that's in facet form and getting it in a way that you can then do more with it. In this case, Paul's going to add a transition. He's going to add like a blend type shape to take that sharp edge off. Everyone wanted to blend a facet body. You bring one in, it's pretty ugly. And what Paul's just doing, notice he's got all the drag and drop, dragging of the points. And so there he goes. He's just going to go through. And he's going to make a nice, smooth transition on that edge. There we go. So pretty cool, that one. Now, this happens quite often when you scan geometry. It also happens quite often with things like topology optimization, particularly if you've got a weight calculation. Because to get weight out, one of the things that you can do is obviously put some holes in areas. But that little hole will just be an absolute nuisance. So what Paul's using is a technique called paint, and he's just painting around the facets around that hole that he wants to get rid of, and then he's going to say snip. Now, at that point, every one of you thinks he's now made it much worse. So what he's now going to do is fill the hole. So he just comes in and says, fill, pick the two pots, and then says, right, make it all go smooth. And sure enough, the hole's gone, and he's got something that's much more useful. One final thing that we'll do on this one. This is a bit of fun. This is like a hard edge. This edge, this is cylindrical pretty much. So what Paul's done is he's just actually said he wants to divide the facet body up such that this is now a hard edge. And guess what he can use to make this one look nice? He can use edge blend. So he doesn't have to worry about that. If it's a complex facet, we have the transition. He's just picking edge blend. Or the same edge blend you've been using for years. Well, now in those cases where you've got that hard edge on the facet body, will work on facet bodies too. Right? So the whole idea of that was to make working with this type of geometry much quicker and much faster. Let me get rid of this. Is that live? Yeah. So, yeah, Paul's pressing away quite nicely. All right. Design for additive manufacture. We'll talk about this a little bit. As I mentioned, the whole idea of our design process is to try and tie this together into a single system. You can go find lots of niche systems that do individual parts of the additive manufacture process. Our goal for you is to give you a single solution such that when you make changes and make new designs, they ripple through. So single solution, no translation, being able to work on things. I have things like wizards that are DFMA checks to make sure that what you're designing can be actually printed and manufactured, but also extra tools. So we're going to do back to another live demonstration. So one of the favorite things that anyone talks about when they talk about using additive, and one of the benefits is this topic of lightweighting, being able to take volume out. Now, it's not just as simple as making a hollow, because that takes volume out. The trouble is that impairs structural integrity. So what you want to do is take volume out and maintain structural integrity. So what Paul's done is he's picked that yellow surface in the middle. It looks yellow to me, but it's kind of, and then he's just said, I want to go through, and he has a choice of lattice structures that he's gone through. You'll see this grid that's come on here. This is going to give us the layout. In NX11, we introduced our first pass of lattice, and it was a unit lattice. So it was great on things if you wanted it all to be kind of regular shape, but on something like this, which was irregular and formed, it didn't help you. So now, in NX12, we now have conformal lattice, and you can see the structure. Anyone want to have a go at modeling that individually? No, so I didn't think so. So you get this whole idea. We're giving you that tool inside of NX. No translation, being able to then take it into the next stage of the process, go through, do your slicing, do your support generation, do all the work you need to do to actually prepare this for print. And I hate to imagine how many faces there are on that lattice, but of course the benefit of this is it's a facet body, and how do we use facet bodies? Convergent modeling, so we can combine it with our regular design. Thanks. All right, we're almost there. And it's almost Sam's big moment. One other topic that is very popular at the moment, and when we talk to customers, is where are we going with virtual reality? So additive manufacturing is one big topic, and how can I get the benefits of virtual reality in my design? So we've been working on this. This is due out in July, so a couple months' time. So we have Sam here, and he's got his VR equipment. Stood down there. Unfortunately, there's no light on him. And we're using the HTC Vive. Now, what you can see, this is the Local Motors Ollie, which is a mass transportation autonomous vehicle. The Ollie itself is in the exhibition area. The hardware will go down to the exhibition area after we've finished. So if anyone wants to come and have a go at this, be our guest. Now, so you've seen that. Now, Sam is just going up, and you'll notice we've added a straight switch. We don't want you to translate data out. What have I been saying all along? Trying not to translate and force you outside of NX. So inside of NX, we've gone there. OK? Now, at this point, we could all leave the room, and Sam has no clue that we've gone, right? So it's kind of, right? But anyway, so what you can see is what Sam can see. So actually, they've kind of got him up there. So you can see that he's gone in, and he can move around. You can see what he's doing with his left and right hand. He's navigating around. He can pick things. He can do things like sectioning. He can go inside. So we're actually inside the Ollie, and now we're going to go down. And he's going to pick something, and you'll see the pop-up menu come up. And he's going to run a section plane around through the process, so he can actually highlight areas. He can pick components and then go and interrogate more information. So he's looking at going inside of his environment, picking one of these components. You can see a tab comes up. It has things like part attributes, part number. It has all those things, your materials you want to use. It's giving you an immersive way of going through and working with this data, making most use of it. Remember, we haven't translated this. This is inside of the NX environment. He can start adding more, he can pull up more information. Maybe he wants to go and do some, do you want to do a bit of a measure for me, Sam? Check the distance of something. The distance we're doing in this is not like the measure Paul did, which was precise. This is kind of a rough measurement that he's going to go through, and he's going to pick a couple of things, and it's more like laying a ruler into his environment. So we've gone inside. Oh, we're going to check the distance between the two speaker points, or I'll pick up on one of them. There you go, both hands. He's kind of roughly measuring this out. It's like using a tape, look. He's kind of, so there's the distance, OK? So 0.1 of a meter. There are lots of other functions. If you want to come and play with this, one of Sam's favorite functions, we've added a new function in called teleport. Now, yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, unfortunately, for my age, when my kids were growing up, we were into Harry Potter. So this is apparate, right? So this is, should have been called that. So but anyway, so teleport. So you can see what it's doing is it's taking Sam's to where it goes. The main reason you want to do that, just as anyone wonders, is if I'm doing one of these reviews on a ship or in a plant, a factory, and I have to get from here to the other end of the building, there is a long way to go with a headset on. All right, so it's easier to fly to that point, do the measurements, do the integration. We really could leave at this point. He's got his back to us, right? So he's going to. OK, so a lot of work in there. I urge you to go, come over to the exhibition, and I'm just, for whatever reason, this keeps popping up as to. Anyone know how you get rid of that bit? Yeah. There we go. So let's do, so just to wrap up, and I'll thank everyone for their attention, but we're going to try something different this year. As Bob mentioned, starting tomorrow, In the area, which is like the 225, 226 area, which is the main NX rooms where the rest of the detail sessions, Bob and his senior leaders will be available for an hour. So instead of just doing, in the past we've had Q&A type chat with type sessions, and then you get like 45 minutes to fight with everybody. Now, there's going to be 3 hours, 3 set hours. Bob is promising he will be there. Mike will make sure he delivers Bob down there, plus a few extras, to talk to you. If you want to go chat with him, yes, some have individual meetings anyway, but this will be quite different to integrate, to give you a chance to talk about things that you're interested in and learn more about. The other thing I do want to do before everyone leaves, hopefully, we have a lot of community users in here. If you don't, I urge you to go look at the NX design community online. We have thousands of posts, thousands of pieces of information. When we're going through a new release, we are constantly putting up things about the things in that new release, new enhancements, thousands of articles. Sat down at the front here is a young man who I'm pleased joined my team, Billy. He will be around in the exhibition area, he'll be around the conference, coming into the sessions. Have a chat with him. He manages the community. If you've got suggestions, he'll listen to them, but we would love to get feedback on how you use the community. With that, I want to thank you for sticking with this and your attention. I think, how are we doing on time? Well, we're 5 minutes over. I believe it's lunch now. Thanks for your time and attention. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Love to see you in the rest of the NX sessions all around. So thanks, everybody.